Okay. All right. I don't know why I skipped Rocky 2 and went to the third movie to review, but the Lord works in mysterious ways. Anyways, so I think this movie, I'm just gonna assume that most of you have seen the first two Rocky movies, or at least the people that I'm probably gonna end up showing this video with. But if you haven't, stop watching this video, watch the other two Rocky movies, and then come back and watch me talk about Rocky 3. Because, yeah, there's really no way to avoid any spoilers from the last movie in order to give context for this film. So, yeah, this was the movie where I think Stallone was starting to focus more on silly, fun popcorn entertainment because the first two Rocky films were more on the gritty, realistic side. They looked like movies that you could conceivably see on PBS on the weekend or something because they were a little more mature, a little more complex, and a little less focusing on entertainment value. This movie started, this is where the cliches started to come into play and really started to pile up with the Rocky movies. I'm not saying that's bad because this is a very entertaining movie. It picks up right where the second movie ended, and it has Rocky winning the heavyweight championship belt, and he ends up becoming this overnight millionaire where Mr. T plays this young up and coming boxer that wants to take Rocky down a peg. And after Rocky gets bashed, bloodied, and beaten, he then tries to train with his old rival Apollo Creed to retake the title. And that's one of the things I really like about this movie is that it's kind of a redemption not only for Rocky but for Apollo, who lost the heavyweight belt to Rocky in the second movie and retired from boxing. So it was it was actually really cool to see both of them working together. And it also kind of showed that Apollo is not just, it kind of showed there's more to Apollo than just the showmanship and the flash and the ego. And also, I will say this is a really crazy movie. I mean, it's not as insane as Rocky Four would get, which I'm gonna review somewhere in the future. I'm not sure when. Um, Maybe next year, since that movie's gonna hit its 35th anniversary next year. Maybe. Um, but it's kind of weird to see Rocky fight Mr. T twice and then also Hulk Hogan in the same movie. Stallone wrote and directed this film, and I'm not sure where he came up with this because I think the reason why this movie was so out there compared to the first two was that this was intended to be the final Rocky film because Stallone really had no plans to go beyond making it a trilogy, but because of the fact that this movie did so well and people enjoyed it, the critics really enjoyed it, he did ultimately decide, okay, I guess I can make a fourth film. So there was that. Um, and as far as the antagonist, Mr. T, he's a lot different than Apollo, where Apollo is a little more believable. This guy is a cartoon character villain. He's one of those guys that would always threaten to beat you up if you disagreed with him. Only this time, this guy would be unstable enough to actually beat you tomorrow. You know? And he is kind of a loudmouth braggart. He is really full of himself. He always likes to trash talk. And that's one of and that's what makes the movie so good is that you really hate him as much as Rocky does, and you really want to see Rocky win the title back and then beat this guy into submission. And he is also indirectly responsible for murdering Mickey, Rocky's old trainer. So that does kind of give Rocky a little more motivation to try and get back at Clubber Lang after losing in the first few rounds of the fight. Because in this fight, Rocky takes a really savage beating, and in the other movies, in the first movie he did lose, and the second movie he barely won. But we're so used to seeing him go 15 rounds. This movie, he gets knocked out in literally the second round. So that's probably the most embarrassing defeat this character has ever had in the series. You know? And I do think that the movie it does a good job at bringing us a good compelling story while also being an entertaining popcorn film as well. The opening, I think the opening really sets the tone with how this movie is going to present itself, because right after the opening recap of the second movie, we go into this I can't remember how long Eye of a Tiger is, but it does go into like a 3-4 minute montage of Rocky going up to the top and Clubber Lang fighting for his shot to prove he is a top guy. So you can kind of tell right off the bat that this is going to be a different movie. I'm trying to think if there's any flaws in there that are worth mentioning, because I can think of a few that are kind of nitpicky. But I think my one problem that I might have, I can't really think of anything about the movie that I would deduct points for. I think maybe I think it's a very well done movie. Is it as good as the first one? Not really, because the first one was telling a more emotionally complex story. And the second one was more about Rocky trying to find a way to survive. The first film was Rocky trying to prove himself. The second one was him trying to find a way to stay alive. This one is more of a grudge match for pride. So, I mean, I understand why Rocky. Well, actually, I can think of one flaw, because there's one scene where Rocky is like, "How did everything that was so good get so bad?" I don't really know how things got bad. Yes, you lost your title, but you still have a mansion. No one's really dismissing you. They are saying that you may not have a chance at winning this fight, but the public never left Rocky's side. And even Decker Shadow, who reviewed the movie years ago, mentioned that, yeah, no one really turned on Rocky. They were really mad that he lost. If anything, the loss put people on Rocky's side more because they wanted to see him get the title back. You know, and yeah, I don't really see how things got so bad, because really the only way things got bad was that Rocky's pride and confidence got shattered. Aside from that, nothing really changed aside from Rocky's ego being damaged. And with that being said, it is nice to see Rocky get back the title, but there was nothing. He just lost his pride and his self image, you know. And this one, where the first two was, it doesn't have as much emotional resonance as the first two movies, where Rocky really had a lot on the line. With this one, it was just Rocky trying to get revenge on someone for messing up his public image. Well, his image as a fighter. But for the most part, the movie is pretty well done. The characters are entertaining. It is really sad to see Mick die. And I get that it's an emotional scene, but Sylvester Stallone trying to act sad and crying, he's not that good of an actor. So that, aside from me not seeing this as real, despite me thinking that the stakes aren't as high and Rocky's emotional scenes aren't that good when he's trying to be sad, it's still a solid movie. I would highly recommend that you would watch it. And or if you've already seen it, I would say whenever you feel like watching it again, go ahead. You'll probably enjoy it again. I mean, it's a very enjoyable movie. There's just a few flaws in there that are kind of noticeable, but that's it. And I will be doing my Born in the USA